Is the analysis and trading of softs the same as it was 10 or 20 years ago, or have they gone through a revolution in commodities like everything else?
Yes, to a certain extent they have. I mean, analysis is very much broadly still supply and demand. Ultimately, for agricultural commodities, it's very much supply side driven because demand tends to be very constant. In coffee, it's growing at a stable 2% per year. But it's supply that drives it because it's grown in tropical countries. So what's the weather in Brazil? What's the weather in Vietnam?
So it sounds like it was 20, 30 years ago. But within your coffee analysis, Brazil, I get the usual names. There's the new kid on the block, Vietnam as well. So is there a new complexity which makes it harder for the commodity traders to get on trend?
I think what sets coffee apart from the rest is that actual on-the-ground supply-side information is not really prevalent. You don't have the USDA that's constantly reporting on what the production numbers are.
Like in corner wheat or the
exactly.
others. Right.
Whereas for coffee, you really have to be on the ground, literally counting the cherries on the tree to see how big that crop's going to be. And you're right, there's Vietnam, there's Honduras, there's Colombia, there's Mexico, Peru. You have to have agronomists on the ground to literally count the numbers.
Yeah, is it different from cocoa? And I don't know whether we do have a cocoa chart, right? But this was one of the first things that I did at Bloomberg.
See, she doesn't do this on any day but Friday. I've got to discover a cocoa chart right now.
The cocoa, this is depending on drought. This is depending on a lot of the producers. Well, you have, social unrest such as the Ivory Coast.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, again, boots on the ground. That's the only way you can find out really what's happening to the production. Because it's not necessarily large scale. It's usually one man and his hectare of land.
Okay, so kind of if you look at the soft commodity landscape, what will do well in 2018?
Well, it's tricky. I mean, you just talked about oil and metal. Those, I think, on the back of a strong economic global growth, those look quite positive, particularly if you have a weaker US dollar, as some people are saying. Again, that's positive for commodities. But softs and grains generally, I don't think we're going to share that uplift in commodities because the story fundamentally is not quite there. Both sugar and grains right now are very well supplied. So we have oversupply, therefore prices should stay under pressure. Coffee technically is in a deficit, but the 2018 crops will be large. So futures will be looking ahead at big crops, and so they'll be looking to discount that. So I don't think you're going to see the kind of push up in prices in the softs as you've seen in metals and energy.